We're all innately creative. We're all innate artists. It's not what the ubiquitous business advice is, and we can't necessarily access all of that juicy intuition and imagination when we're only hanging out in that logical, linear, rational part of us.
Welcome to Homegrown CEO, the podcast for entrepreneurs, leaders, and business builders seeking actionable insights to grow their ventures and themselves. I'm your host, Matt Colborn, and today we're diving into the incredible power of creative practices on our thinking and productivity. I'm joined by Susie deVille, a trailblazing business coach, artist, and author. As founder and CEO of the Innovation Creativity Institute, Susie routinely empowers entrepreneurs to tap into their innate creativity for business success. Between her academic research and tried and tested methods for achieving heightened creative thinking, I am so excited to learn from her experiences on today's episode, Rediscovering Our Creativity. At the end of this episode, I hope you'll be inspired to get creative and empowered to head over to our website and download some of the materials to help you on your journey. But more on that later. For now, let's welcome Susie. Share with me a little bit about the years that you've dedicated to studying innovation and creativity, and what surprised you about some of the things that you learned.
I started studying innovation and creativity back in 2005 when I was in a master's class, and we were shown a film about designed for a mountain, Palo Alto, California. And the film just set my brain on fire. And that was the moment that I started researching everything I could get my hands on that pertained to innovation and creativity. And what really surprised me as a person who would have said her entire life, if I hadn't discovered this, that I'm not an artist, is that we're all innately creative. We're all innate artists. We have funny language and beliefs that are cultural around what an artist is.
Yeah.
But that's what set me on my path.
Terrific. So for someone that is listening to this who, finds themselves having great business skills or might even be a wizard with the numbers but wouldn't necessarily describe themselves as creative, what would you say to that around the idea of creativity being something you have or don't have?
First of all, I would say you are in excellent company, because this is how the vast majority of us think, how we're taught. What our brain will tell us, how we're wired to take action, is to believe that we have to lean into our left hemisphere, this logical, linear, very rational, analytical part of us in order to be successful. That sort of lines us up beautifully for the other part of the cultural lore, which is we have to work more and be more productive and have more discipline in order to have any kind of success. Again, this is exactly what I used to believe. What's interesting, though, is that when we lean more into the creative parts of us, when we get into this zone of being an explorer and an adventurer, trying things and having more curiosity and doing what I call the 5 practices, what I call the 5 M's, we start to understand the direct relationship between tapping into our innate creativity and reaching the ultimate in success and freedom, because it's deeply personal to us. It's not what the ubiquitous business advice is. It is really what sets us free on an individual basis. And we can't necessarily access all of that juicy intuition and imagination when we're only hanging out in that logical, linear, rational part of us.
So we'll come back to the 5 M's shortly, but what's the potential danger of that old narrative? If we go through adulthood believing that we're not creative, like how can this impact our professional results and our professional performances?
It's an entirety of both professional and personal, because our unexpressed creativity, to me, it's like a swirling force of potentiality that exists in all of us. But when we don't express it, just the way that Brené Brown talks about it, if we don't express it, it's not benign. it is actually very toxic to us. And we can't really put our fingers on, why am I not getting ahead? Why am I not taking bold action? Why am I hanging out on the sidelines? Why don't I feel fulfilled? Where is my joie de
Mm.
vivre? These are all the things that come to us when we start to tap into that creativity and begin to just play around and experiment.
So now that we've kind of ripped up that schoolbook idea of what creativity looks, it's probably a good time to get into the mysterious 5 M's that you referenced earlier.
Yes. So I discovered these practices when I was pulling myself out of what I lovingly refer to as my nuclear winter period, which is
Mm.
what happened to me when the markets crashed in 2008. And I needed to find a new way to live and work. And I began trying lots of different things. So I created the 5 M's when I was looking back at how
Mm.
I was able to pull myself off of the emotional and financial and physical gurney. So these are one, Morning Pages, which is the brainchild of author Julia Cameron, who wrote the book The Artist's Way. 3 pages
Mm.
of longhand writing. It is serves us to get all of this stuff out of our head first thing in the morning and have a clean slate going forward. A
Mm.
lot of people say, "Oh, I can't journal. It's not for me." I can tell you that even if you do a half a page, you will see the magic within 4 or 5 days. It's kind of amazing. What a wonderful return on investment that is. The second is movement. It is so important for us in some capacity every single day to get up or sit in a chair, do chair exercises, take a walk, take a bike ride, whatever it is, but engage ourselves physically. Take along
Mm.
with us a journal, capture the ideas. The best ideas that I ever get come when I am on a walk.
Mm.
They don't come necessarily when I'm sitting in an office or sitting at a desk. They come when I am engaged, when my body is moving, and the combination of muscular movement as well as fresh air and great sunshine equals this ability sort of to send a taproot
Mm.
down into our intuition.
It's like the act of creating reveals the thinking, not the other way around, Susie.
Totally. I write in order to know what I think. The best ideas that come from me are not going to come from being in a vacuum, being
Mm.
still, not expressing myself creatively. That's when I'm going to get sort of the known ideas. I'm going to tap into the commonplace knowledge. I'm not going to tap into what I truly think and believe. So you're
Mm.
absolutely right. The third is meditation. I have a lot of people who will initially say, "Oh my gosh, no, I can't sit still. I've tried it. I hate it." But if you can sit in a chair in a quiet room for 5 minutes without your phone anywhere near you and just sit there and enjoy a nice central nervous system reset, you can get great benefits. And then if you love it, you can work up and add more time, but 5 minutes is wonderful.
What are some other places, Susie, that you've found, to do that 5 minutes of meditation? Like where else have you done it outside of the chair?
I actually find that when I am creating anything, especially if I'm doing a painting, I can access the same kind of central nervous system reset that I get by sitting in a chair.
Yeah, interesting. I've been doing quite a big woodworking project lately, building a bit of a renovation for my youngest daughter's bedroom, and just the act of sanding the timber and just focusing on sanding the grains of the timber has been quite a meditative and resetting and restorative practice for me while I've been working on that project. So it's interesting where you can find those resets.
Well, you just touched upon one of the 5 M's, which is making something. When we engage our hands, now I'm not poo-pooing the digital world, but I will say that when we lean into the physical analog world and use our hands to make something, it doesn't matter what it is. Everybody gets hung up on, oh, it's not going to be any good or no one's going to like it. It's the process of actually moving our hands and going into that zone that you just described.
Mm.
That zone is where the parts of our brain that are involved with creativity light up. That's when the back channels of who we truly are, our intuition, imagination, problem solving, all sort of stirs up and becomes so much more accessible to us. So it's kind of like what happens to us when we're on a long drive and we go into this sort of state and we end up somewhere and we're like, wow, where have I been the last 5 minutes?
Who's been driving the car, Susie?
And this also happens on a walk or when we're swimming, when we're engaged in this sort of soothing kind of repetitive motion. What happens is that the default mode network of our brain comes online, and that's where all of the creativity lives. So, for example, when I was teaching a class last fall, I was working on 2 paintings. The sort of assignment was to go between the 2 very quickly so we didn't get all hung up on our perfectionism. We finished. I was on the way to wash my brushes. The entirety of the table of contents for book number 2, which I wasn't even thinking about consciously, started coming. So I threw the brushes and started writing furiously. Everybody had asked me, when's book number 2? I'm like, I have no idea what it's going to be. And here it is. So it's really kind of delicious and surprising and delightful when we kind of turn over this controlling part of us to the unknown and let ourselves enter this world. And it's not only calming and fun, but this is how we build the musculature for tolerating uncertainty and helping us get the courage to take bold action. So, morning pages, meditation, movement, making something, and the 5th, which we haven't mentioned yet, is called Moments of Inspired Learning. That's a very quick 3-minute, 2-minute exercise where you're capturing maybe an inspirational quote and writing it in a journal. You're reading an inspirational page out of a book, listening to a poem that fills you with delight and energy. Whatever it is for you, it's a quick little appetizer, a little morsel of inspiration that starts your brain starting to make connections among chunks of information. So things that you're working on, maybe you're writing a sales page, maybe you're launching a new offer, maybe you're launching a brick and mortar enterprise, whatever it is, those things where we need the deeper knowledge that resides within us, we can start to sort of connect these dots forward and backwards when we have these little hits of inspiration that give us a little jolt of aliveness.
I love these inspiration appetizers that you talk about. I want to gobble some of them up. But to bring those 5 M's back to the professional setting, then you've worked with a lot of interesting entrepreneurs. Can you share with us a story of someone who's experienced fresh ideas or business growth by being able to include that creative expression into their daily life?
Absolutely. I have a gal who came to me when she was in her mid-40s. She was the owner of a design company. And she came to me asking for help scaling her enterprise to another level. She wanted to be at multiple millions. And I said, absolutely. And the first thing I did was provide her with a bag of all kinds of creativity and art supplies. And I thought she was going to pass out. She was just so angry. She said, what are you doing? Just give me the strategy. I'm not doing this artsy craftsy stuff. That's for people who are retired or for kids or whatever. She was like everybody, though. All of my hard charging entrepreneurs have the same kind of vein throbbing reaction when I talk to them. It started out with just doing 1 or 2 of the 5 M's. And I got her to kind of feel in her body the difference between before and after. So she started out with morning pages and doing more movement than she typically would do. And that prepared her for sort of having the willingness to do the making something piece. When we got through the first sort of 4 weeks of her routinely making something with me and on her own, she started to understand where she had become disconnected from her original core audience and how she had kind of gotten lost along the way, why her design work had become stale and colorless. It was because her life had become stale and colorless. And she was trying to drag herself through misery to make more money. And I could very much help her see and feel what it
Mm,
feels like to be alive and then create something in your enterprise that is born from that soil. And she became absolutely magnetic. She won a design award. She started getting clients, not just sort of the regular clients that she had been attracting, exquisite, elite clients who
mm,
were in a top tier for her in terms of price points and an
mm,
enormous margin. So she started to understand the direct relationship between the two, and that she understood too that she couldn't white knuckle her way to the success that she
mm,
craved, that she was going to get there much more readily, surprisingly, by having fun, by expressing her creativity, by
mm.
being more playful, by blocking out time to travel, to go on adventures. And she is, I mean, going gangbusters,
Yeah.
today.
Oh, what a great result for her. And I love the framework and the structure of the 5 M's. But often starting a new habit is very hard for people. What advice would you give to someone in just picking the first of those 5 M's to focus on? How do I pick which one to start with first?
Which one are you more curious about? That would be the first question that I would ask.
Mm,
Which one of these excites you? Which one would you be willing to try for 2 or 3 weeks for at least 5 minutes? And start there. The sort of human tendency is to go from 0 to 500 miles an hour. So we think that if I don't do all 5 for an hour every day, then I'm not gonna get any results, which is bananas. It's totally not true.
mm,
You can get a lot of benefit from just one thing for 5 minutes. So for somebody who likes paper and pencils and
mm,
writing, you might choose the journaling piece.
mm,
But maybe you're interested in collecting little inspirational quotes. I have a
mm,
journal that's filled with them. And perhaps you're working on a book or you're working on a website and you want some inspiration for your site or for your book. You can start there because it'll have do double duty for you. But literally whichever one pulls to you, give it a really good try for 2 or 3 weeks, and if it's not your thing, try another one.
I love this. So it's not about trying to make the really big waves to start with. We should be content in just getting a little bit of a ripple effect going. With that in mind, like what can we expect to see in ourselves after just a few weeks of starting to restore creative expression?
The first thing that a lot of people notice is a sense of sort of prevalent calm. And what happens is that you start to sort of feel like a skier at the top of a
Mm,
diamond run where there's all kinds of jumps and so forth. And maybe it's a foggy day, but you're up at the top of this run and somehow you can see the path. You're not sort of riddled with, you can't do this or imposter syndrome. You have a quiet level of confidence and calm. Right there ignites sort of a chain reaction
mm,
because along with the tapping into our intuition comes a little sort of morsel of courage. When we start to lean into what it is that we really want to do, but we've been afraid to do, then that ignites the serendipity in the universe. Here comes interesting support. People who may or may not be in our network, but are finding us because we are magnetizing ourselves to being very interesting and attractive to the people who are meant to either be ideal clients or perhaps friends or associates or collaborative partners, whatever it is. There is this ripple effect that happens. And you don't have to do this for very long. I mean, I even have people in a class experience the peace and the calm and the clarity like immediately.
mm.
It can be instant, but it also has an accumulation that compounds. And so the more you do it, the more it builds. And then we start to get into this zone where we really trust ourselves. And if you think about sort of the death knell for a creator's ability or an entrepreneur's ability to connect with their market, it's this ickiness of self doubt and being stuck. So it liberates you from that.
So I guess what we're saying is that then with that innovation, it's tying back into creativity, and the clearer we can get our headspace, the more playful and open we are to what's happening, the more room there is for new ideas to appear and grow, right?
Absolutely. And we're so much more willing to test things. So we become not only idea machines, which is kind of the foundation for some of the coolest aspects of innovation, but then we
Mm.
become wonderful sort of scientists with these ideas. And we get clever and creative about how to test so that we get the right kind of feedback and we can iterate and improve and connect more and more with wider audiences.
And what about when we're still stuck creatively as we're trying to restore, but we're still finding ourselves blocked in the different types of creative pursuits we're looking for? How can we unstick ourselves?
The main thing that I sort of emphasize to people is to try to tune into what your brain is telling you because our brain is just beautifully wired to keep us alive. But that also comes with putting us in a state of survival and scarcity. And so if we can kind of tune in to what are the old chestnuts that my brain plays on a regular basis? You're not enough. You're never going to be a success. Whatever it is that's it's telling us. Try to capture that in your journal. This is one wonderful sort of practical application for the morning pages. My brain is telling me blah, blah, blah. Then start to question whether or not this is an accurate thing that your brain is telling you, and start to sort of lightly play around with these thoughts that you're getting. Where we're stuck is not in most times, not in really having the clarity of what the next step is, but having the courage to do the next step. And if we're stuck and not getting momentum, a lot of it has to do with this very sort of finely tuned, evolutionarily sparkling brain that wants to keep us safe and secure. And it will tell us anything that's new, anything that's different, anything that's innovative is loaded to the gills with danger. And so we shouldn't try it. And that's when we get stuck because we have the desire to do it, but we have the fear. So if you can stay consistent with at least one of the 5 M's, and then also tune in to what those thoughts are that are playing on repeat, you can start to get a little distance between you and your brain, and you can start to take that thought and turn it around to something that is actually empowering for you rather than limiting you.
Could you share a little bit about how getting started is often the hardest part with this, but actually a messy start is often where you start to find some clarity in what you're trying to do? It doesn't have to be perfect from the start.
We want so badly to get the A plus.
Mm.
We want so badly to get the praise for being perfect. We want to control outcomes. And this, again, is a product of both brain and culture. And we have been taught in a lot of ways that we don't really have value unless we achieve something, that it doesn't just arrive at birth, that our self worth is dependent upon what we do with ourselves and what we might achieve. So, in the world of leveraging our creativity, it's very important to sort of see the connection between perfectionism and old cultural stories and a brain that is just trying to keep us safe. And understand that your resistance to getting started doesn't mean that you are not capable. It doesn't mean that everybody else can do it but you. It means that you're human and just like everybody else.
Mm.
Remember, it's not what I make. It's not how great the journal looks. It's not how wonderful the painting turns out. It's me getting in motion. That's the only thing, actually, that matters. You may love what you make. You may love your journal. That's great. But it's really about moving. And then it ignites the entire sort of chain reaction. Those wonderful dominoes start to fall. And so if we can understand that desire to go, well, I'll start it on Monday, or I don't have the right gear, or my journal's not perfect, or whatever it is, if we can understand how uniquely human of a response that is and be compassionate with ourselves and just say, well, what can I do today? Can I get a Post-it and try to draw the car keys? I mean, it's that
Mm.
level of sort of experimentation and playfulness, and to take it from being this giant creative project to how can I just move my hands for the next 5 minutes?
So some top tips just to recap then for leaders and entrepreneurs. Firstly, we want to integrate the 5 M's: movement, meditation, morning pages, moments of inspired learning, and making something, my personal favorite. But be consistent. Set out just 5 minutes a day to welcome the inspiration, making it part of your routine to create or learn something. If you're really enjoying it, go beyond the 5 minutes and start stretching it out. And the third tip, just really enjoy the process, right? Make time for a craft or activity which you just genuinely enjoy doing, focusing on the doing itself rather than trying to get to the finished project. Susie, I feel like I've learnt so much from you today already, and thank you so much for your insights. Before we wrap up, though, I'd love to hear what was your kitchen benchtop moment that really started it all for you? So looking back on your journey, can you share an experience which felt totally pivotal for you and really sort of helped shape how you think and operate today?
Absolutely. So when I began my sort of creative rebels voyage and I started to test a theory that I had, because I had this sense that all of this theoretical knowledge that I had about innovation and creativity was just a tiny piece of the puzzle, a tiny piece of the magic. And during my nuclear winter period, I started to actually get classes in how to sketch and how to do watercolor. And I started to feel in my body what it feels like to make something from this meditative, almost surrendered state. And if you can imagine how much anxiety and fear and panic I was experiencing on a daily basis during this time. And then there was this sort of oasis of calm and delight and a sense of possibility. And that started to shift how I actually moved in the world and the decisions and choices that I made. And those decisions and choices were based upon what I love, what brings me alive. And I started to go, oh, this is how it is an impactful shift for not only me, but for everybody else.
Nuclear winter is a pretty descriptive way of summing it up. Let me ask you: did it feel like a nuclear winter at the time, or you only
yes.
feel about that now when you look back, or do you still see it as a nuclear winter all these years later?
It for sure felt like nuclear winter when I was in it. It wasn't anything I would love to experience again. However, I am profoundly grateful for it because without it, I would not have written a book. I would not have created the kind of instruction and curriculums that I do today with clients. I wouldn't be coaching people in Paris and other places. I would probably still be living a very sort of linear, logical, analytically driven life that would have been successful and devoid also of color and delight and joie de vivre.
Susie deVille, it's been an absolute joy to learn from you today.
Thank you so much. It has been just absolutely delightful.
Susie's journey is such a powerful reminder that creativity isn't a luxury, it's fuel. It recharges our thinking, reconnects us with joy, and helps us lead with more presence and imagination. I've seen it firsthand. For me, it was woodworking that brought me back to that creative spark. Hands-on building after hours of screens and strategy. I didn't realise how much I needed it until I started again. And the knock-on effect? More clarity, better thinking, and a calmer approach to business. So what's your version of that? What's the creative habit you've shelved while chasing your goals? To help you reignite it, we've created a full set of tools at homegrown.ceo, including the Creative Reset Plan, something you can return to anytime you feel stuck, flat, or uninspired. They're all ready for you to go at homegrown.ceo, simple, powerful, and designed to get you creating again. Thanks for joining me and Susie today. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need a creative reset too. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss what's next. I'm Matt Colborn. See you next time. And until then, keep making something.